The Red Sox win the World Series. Free agents galore. We look back at the 2018 season. You're watching the lineup. Welcome to the lineup, everybody. For Jeff, the Hammer, the Mountain Man, Matthews, I am Joshua Adams. Once again, pace of play is in the news. Average game time this year was 3 hours, which is actually 5 minutes shorter than last year. Yep. So, you know, I guess Manfred's job is done. He can leave now. He can leave.
He can leave.
Yeah, he can
I
leave.
think you would love to see that. I think that's.
What gives you that impression? I don't understand what I've said that would maybe show you that that's my opinion.
Right. Okay. Well, okay. Anyway, we'll just continue on with the show, Mr. You love Manfred?
Yes, my best friend. Okay. He's my best friend.
No, actually, it was really weird this whole entire season. I kind of felt it through watching all the games. It felt shorter. I mean, 5 minutes is not a whole lot, but
when you say 5 minutes, that is taking into account, you know, the 17-inning ball games.
Yeah.
The ball games that. All the ball games between the Red Sox and the Yankees, which those are 5.5-hour affairs.
Right.
Those are not short ball games.
No.
So the fact that it went down 5 minutes, it's still not what Manfred wanted. I don't remember the exact number. It might have been 2 hours and 50 minutes that he was shooting for. Otherwise, there was going to be a pitch clock, and obviously I am not for the pitch clock. I don't think you are.
I'm not.
Yeah,
I don't think it's necessary.
It just doesn't sound like a good idea.
I think the biggest thing is getting players to kind of pick it up. It's just, you know, kind of like football. Like, you know, when you're at football practice, like, all right, guys, let's hustle up.
Yeah.
I think it's just kind of like that, one of those type of things. Not like, you shouldn't tell your players, like, hey, take your time. Like, we have all day in the world. Instill in their head that, hey, you should probably act like you want to be on the field.
Probably get it going. Probably act like you actually want to play baseball.
Right.
Even in the, I think 30 years ago, not 30 years ago, in 1980, which is 40 years ago at this point, the average game time was a little over 2.5 hours. So this is a huge step up. But Hank Aaron during the World Series actually said that he doesn't think he could hit a modern day fastball. He was talking to Willie Mays and he said, if they were throwing like this whenever I was playing, I would have not done well. And that's coming from Hank Aaron. So that gives you an example of how difficult this game is. And that's why they take so long.
That's with every sport. You have to understand, like, as time goes on, sports evolve and people start training for these sports at a younger age, and now the sport has just taken it's a new era, right? And so I think that's really interesting that he brought that up, because you can see that in almost every sport that's out there today.
Yeah. Possibly the biggest free agent class in MLB history is underway. We'll start with the big three. I almost said big free.
Big free.
Big free, man. We talked briefly about Harper last week. So at this point, it's not really how much money. I mean, it's not really will he get a lot of money. It's how much a lot of money he's going to get.
Right.
Because that's grammar. That's words, right?
English. You know, I saw somewhere, I'll be honest, I think it was Harper, because all I did was see the news headline. And they were talking about how, or the headline just read that there's a secret deal going on with Harper.
Oh, the Boris little tease. Yeah, I don't necessarily believe that's true, because he's this is possibly the biggest free agency signing in MLB history. Right. He's not going to sign with a team before the World Series is over. Players can officially, I think free agents are officially free agents tomorrow, which will be Friday, November 2nd, as of the filming of this. So he's going to drag it way out.
I think so.
The longer he waits, the more it benefits him. And that's Scott Boris's MO. He lets his guys wait.
And I mean, we saw that with this season. There was people that hadn't signed until like a week until spring training.
Yeah, Greg Holland.
Right.
He didn't sign until March, I think, and then it showed, and he was released by the Cardinals, and he was a lockdown closer. Just I think even in 2017, he was pretty much a lockdown closer.
And it's a strategic game to play when to sign, you know, and when to kind of
risk reward.
Jump, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Jump on a big deal or a possible big deal. You know what I mean? Bryce Harper has nothing to worry about. He's going to get a big deal no matter where he goes.
The floor is he's going to make $35 million a year, which I think that's enough. I don't know. That's maybe just,
I'll be honest,
just my opinion.
It'll put a dent in my paycheck if I was getting that much money.
Yeah.
Bryce Harper, we talked about him a little bit. He's a great ball player. He definitely has the talent if he can become more consistent with the way he plays. But I think the question isn't necessarily how much money he's going to sign for or the floor of what he's going to make per year. I think or per season. It's going to be when and who he's going to sign with.
Yeah, and
because I think all teams who can afford him are going to pay him.
Any team that can afford him will go after him, and Boris knows that, and that's why there's no way in heck he would possibly already have a deal in place.
Right.
From one player with attitude questions to the other, Manny Machado. What can you say about him?
Manny Machado.
We've talked about him. We talked about him a bit last year. The Yankees said they cooled on him, but last week. The Yankees, after all of his antics, said they've cooled on him. Do you believe that? Because the Yankees, Didi Gregorius is injured. He had Tommy John, so he's out for the year. They have a hole at shortstop. They do have Gleyber Torres and a loaded infield, but they're the Yankees.
Right.
And they're multiple high-name free agents.
This could definitely be a business strategy of trying to make everyone think that they're not wanting him.
Drive the price down.
Exactly. See if that price will go down, and then sneak attack on him. But with Manny Machado and the Yankees, they could definitely use him. It's like he has a spot available.
It's a fit. It's definitely a fit.
It's one of those things. Manny Machado, again, who's he going to sign with? When is he going to sign with them? Again, another player who's not going to have a problem getting the money he's wanting. Well, I say that. We did talk about how his actions off the field have definitely
and on the field.
And on the field could have possibly,
when
altered
you try
that
to
or
ruin
whatever.
multiple people's ankles in one in one postseason, that's not exactly a good sign of character.
Or possibly stealing signs.
Yeah, it's possibly stealing signs.
But that's just an allegation.
It is and it isn't.
Right.
I mean, it was. If you see what the Red Sox has said, it's not out of the realm of reason. It's really not.
No, it's not. I guess my take on that is strategy baseball.
Yeah,
baseball is a strategy game.
It's within the rules of baseball.
Right.
It is. So I think it's one of those things that it's within the rules, but you're kind of viewed as a cheap player or a cheap team if you do it. It's not like with the Astros where they allegedly had somebody videotaping the Red Sox dugout and frantically texting somebody.
That's a little overboard.
That is cheating.
But if you have someone who's smart enough to catch a sign and figure out what that means, and I think that's fair game. You can't be mad at a good IQ of a ball player.
Yeah, even Manfred said that. He said sign stealing is as old as Lassie or something like that. He's saying sign stealing has been around since baseball has been around, and I agree with that. But you it's like, is this the lineup? Did he just agree with Rob Manfred? But you can't punish somebody for that, within suspend them or something. He's probably going to get beaned at some point if he keeps doing that. But he's Manny Machado, so he's going to get hit. He's going to get hit by
anybody
for being Manny Machado. It wasn't not sweet to have him be the last strikeout of the World Series. Did you see the pictures where he was in a perfect K?
Oh no!
Yeah, it was great. People drew the outline, and when he struck out, he was like this and whatever, and it was just it was
a little rough.
Oh, it was great. It was so good. At the time of filming, Clayton Kershaw has a big decision coming up. Like Harper, the question is how much money he will get. We don't have too much time on this. I think it's pretty much he's going to be a Dodger for life. He's not going anywhere.
We talked before the show. I touched it a little bit. It's Clayton Kershaw. Dodgers love him. Dodgers fans love him.
They would retire 22 right now.
I think they would. Yeah. And so it's not a question of who he's going to sign with. It's not a question of, where he's going to go.
Yeah,
that's not a thing.
How long the extension's going to be, or if he chooses to go to free agency and come back, how much money he's going to get. Honestly, after that, how badly he does in the postseason, I think if he chooses free agency and then comes back, he actually gets a worse deal.
I think he would too.
That's
I think if he goes for the extension, it'll hurt
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to hurt him. After the break, a look back at the season and our final takes on the World Series. Stick with us.
How will you lead to a better future? Will you lead through life-changing innovations, or will your leadership shine through the quality of your work? Success is defined by the individual. So it's time to think about the person you want to be and where you will learn to lead through excellence. It's time to become a governor at Austin Peay.
Welcome back to the lineup. Jeff Matthews, right there. Joshua Adams, he just sprayed me with the party popper. So this season, and I'm not throwing you under the bus with this.
That's okay.
This was your first full MLB season because you got into baseball because we were doing this show.
Right.
You were kind of more of a casual
I've always been a fan of it, but I had never, fully jumped into.
I want to know, how was your first full MLB season?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I told you I've always been a Braves fan. Like it's always been the Braves for me. Mainly because I was born in Atlanta. We just were raised as Braves fans. We would go to the spring training games. We would go to Turner Field. R.I.P. Turner Field. And this was just a lot of fun. And I picked a great season to jump into.
Yes, you did.
Especially with the Braves. The Braves, I won't touch on them too much. I've talked about them all season. But
have you? I haven't noticed.
That's not nice, Mr. Cubs. But yeah, and it was super exciting. And one thing that I feel like I found out, or how it looks like right now for me, is the National League I felt like was way more competitive. And the American League, and I'm just talking about this past season, the American League was definitely like, these teams are the dominant
super
teams.
Top heavy.
Yeah, exactly.
From the get-go, it was pretty much, these are the good teams.
Right.
The rest can stuff it.
Exactly. That's kind of how I saw it. With the Yankees, the Red Sox, all those teams are just dominant players. They're dominant teams. And so, but it was fun to be a fan of the National League and see how competitive that ended up being.
Yeah, baseball is more interesting when there's battles for the division. Obviously,
Absolutely.
when you lose, as the Cubs did, but the Brewers had an amazing run at the end of the season. You cannot knock the Brewers for anything.
And they played very well throughout the season, I thought. Unfortunately, just when you get to the playoffs, we talked about it before, it's a different ballgame, it's a different atmosphere, and they didn't come out on top.
Yeah, I wouldn't admit this to myself during the season, but I found myself before the season was over pulling for the Brewers.
No, yeah.
They were a really charismatic team, I guess. You just connected with those players somehow. Christian Yelich, because he's 6 years younger than us.
Right.
He's not. He's just really young. He looks really young. That's the whole joke that we've been riding for a month. I think a month.
Probably close to.
But I was pulling for the Brewers heading into the end of the season, and when the Cubs lost in that one-game playoff, I just said the Brewers were a better team. And then when the Cubs lost to the Rockies, the Rockies were a better team, and then the Brewers smoked the Rockies.
Yes, they did.
Hard. So it was a great season for you to get started in baseball, man.
It was.
Yeah.
One thing I loved was the team that kicked the Braves out of the playoffs was the Dodgers. And I was happy to see that the Dodgers were good enough to go all the way to the World Series.
That makes the losses sting less in retrospect, because
really
you're like,
does.
this is the best team the National League has. This is the best we had to offer, and we couldn't beat them.
If they deserved to go to the World Series, they deserve to beat us. It's kind of like how not us. I don't want to say us. I'm not a Brave, but to beat the Braves. But overall, the season was just super fun to watch. The Braves always put on a good game. There was a bunch of teams that had great games this season, and it was just fun to watch baseball. And like I said, jump full head into actually watching baseball, I think made it more enjoyable instead of just kind of like, oh,
easing
look,
into
a game's on. Let me just watch that because I have nothing else to do.
So do you kind of understand a little more why baseball is the only sport I care about?
No.
No, you don't understand.
I still care about
You're just a sports guy.
I am. I love my sports.
The way there's a George Will quote that kind of sums up what I think about baseball, and I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember it exactly. He said, "Baseball is just a game, true, and the Grand Canyon is just a hole in Arizona. Not all holes are created equal, and not all games are created equal."
That's very true.
And I agree with that. Baseball just has something special, and it's just, I mean, there's the joke whenever something horrible happens in baseball and people will say, "How can you not be romantic about baseball?" As kind of a joke. It's from Moneyball. But I genuinely believe that there's something so special that this sport has that I just don't see in football or basketball. There's just some innate connection that I have to baseball, and which is why I don't really follow any other sports.
No, right. And I think a lot of it, as a football fan and as, a little bit of a basketball fan or all these other sports, with ball games in general, and I'm including baseball and I'm actually including softball too, because they're close enough to the same thing.
Yes.
But you have to understand, like, it's a different sports world.
Yeah.
There's not many, like, the season for baseball is a lot longer than other sports.
It's a sport to follow.
And also, it's not just a sport where, like, I'm a fan and he's a fan. Like, we go and watch or a football game, right? If we go and watch a football game, we sit there and we're into the game 100% of the time, and we're watching every single play. And the only time we go to the concession stands is during halftime or during, like, a media timeout or something like that. But with baseball, you get to go and enjoy it with your friends, and you don't just sit there and you're not immersed into the game where you're not connecting with people with you, if that makes any sense. It's definitely like I said, it's a different atmosphere.
Every aspect of baseball is deeply personal. You can connect with the players in ways you can't connect. I don't think you can connect with the players in football or basketball. We're not trying to say whichever sport is best, obviously, because obviously I believe baseball is the best sport, but we're not trying to change any minds here. It's just... But...
No, but yes, I see what you're saying, and I agree with you.
You kind of saw that. This
year.
Absolutely.
Like, you can definitely. It's hard to believe that Ronald Acuna Jr. is only
21 at this point.
Right,
20?
and I'm turning 21 next week.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy to see that. Like, I'm a college student.
Yeah.
And he's a Major League Baseball player.
Yeah, that's the thing. The players almost become, in a sense, like a part of your friend circle in a way, because you understand their personalities, you understand how they're going to react, and then when they strike out and they react the way that they're going to, you're just like, Javi, and it's great because they're your buds, they're your pals.
Exactly, and you see them joking around on the baseball diamond, and you're like, it's definitely fun to watch.
There's a camaraderie and there's a heart that just brings me to baseball. Just Field of Dreams, man. You can't do that. You can't do that about any other sport.
Kevin Costner, where are you?
The most emotional game of catch of all time.
That's right.
The season ended with the World Series, as it does every year. As far as the World Series go, this one was kind of relatively uneventful. The Red Sox came into the season dominating. I think they had 108 wins. And heading into the season, every team that had gotten 108 wins had gone on to win the World Series.
Right.
Surprise, surprise, they won the World Series. They dominated throughout the season. Really no question they were going to make the playoffs from the get-go. Then in the playoffs, they didn't really have many stumbling blocks. And then in the World Series, they had the one 18-inning ball game, and we'll talk about that. But the Red Sox were just a freight train, and nothing was going to stop them.
And before we get into that 18-inning game, if it wasn't for that 18-inning game, I do not believe the Dodgers would have won one game.
Oh, yeah, no.
I think it would have been a complete 4-game sweep by the Red Sox.
That would have been rough.
Yeah.
That would have been hard on Dodger fans to go 7 games one year and then the next year a complete sweep. That's...
It was hard. It was hard to watch because we both talked about how powerful the Red Sox were going into the World Series. And then to see...
There was a knock at the door.
That's what I heard.
I don't know if anybody heard that.
Lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. But we talked about how powerful the Red Sox were, and we talked about how this was, and it was just hard to see the Dodgers kind of come in, and everyone was kind of like, I felt like it was just a general consensus that the Dodgers were going to lose already. Yeah,
we talked about how the Red Sox bullpen was kind of their iffy spot, and it looked to be the Dodgers' strength.
Right.
And then Ryan Madsen gave up like half the runs that the Red Sox scored for on the Dodgers, and then the Red Sox bullpen was shut down. I don't think Joe Kelly allowed a run.
Right.
Watching Joe Kelly pitch is fun. 101 miles an hour, and then like an 87-mile-an-hour curve that there was one time that the catcher thought he called a fastball, and he just had to dive and try and catch that thing. There's something sweet about his curveball.
And this goes back to playoffs are a different game, and there's a different mindset when you step onto a field and you know you're in the World Series. It's a different ballgame, and your mindset changes, and your heart changes, and everything else changes. And that bullpen stepped up, and they got to work, and they did a fantastic job.
Okay, so on that, let's go to the 18-inning ball game. Nate Eovaldi, that might be one of the best postseason pitching performances of all time. He was supposed to pitch the next day. He was the next day's starter.
Right.
He went, I think, 6 or 7 innings, 97 pitches. The only run he gave up was the walk-off home run. He pitched amazingly.
He did.
That was some heart that he showed right there. Rick Parcello, the actual starter of the game, and I think he went 6 as well, he said he cried in the dugout because they couldn't win for Eovaldi. Yeah. And I completely understand that. This Red Sox team, they were clicking. They were connected, and they were all in for each other and for the team. And that's one of the reasons why they barreled through the entire season and the postseason. Is this was a team. I never necessarily got as much of that sense with the Dodgers. But just that 18-inning ball game was something to watch.
It was, and that's something that. One thing I love thinking about is, like, that's something that me and you get to tell our children one day.
We watched the longest ball game in World Series history.
And
7 hours, 20 minutes.
Yeah. Like, we get to tell our kids that, and I think that's crazy to think about. We get to explain to them, like, man, the Red Sox really stepped up with that. They stepped up with their bullpen, and then Eovaldi had a great game. And the Dodgers, and it's hard because you give up 1 home run in 6 innings.
And you get the loss.
In 6 innings, right, is not...
6 innings is
in
a
start. Regular season game, in 6 innings, and you give up 1 home run...
That's a successful start. You will take that 10 times out of 10 over the door.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and thankfully for the Dodgers, it was what they needed.
Yeah. It's that I'm going to remember that game for the rest of my life. When we come back, the only comedy segment on APSU-TV with Greenlight.
Hello, everybody. This is Real Talk. I'm Aaron King, your host. Alongside me every week is our co-stars for this show, Emmett Thomas and Marcus Modi. We're going to be here every single week in this studio talking sports, Austin Peay sports, other college football, and we're also going to be talking a lot of NFL. So if you want to get in on the action, you want to get on the sports, get in on the Real Talk, then come on by APSU-TV. Also brought to you by WAPX FM 91.9. We'll see you here.
We're at the end of our show today. That means Greenlight and overreactions. Since the season's over, this week we roast every single team.
At least the Reds only have 6 more years to waste Joey Votto's career.
At least Clayton Kershaw only has however long his next contract is to waste the Dodgers' playoff chances.
The Diamondbacks are doing what no team has been willing to do before them. Admit defeat and sell off the team to try and rebuild before things get truly ugly. Arizona Diamondbacks, World Series champs 2020.
The Athletics just signed Billy Beane to a long-term extension. Oakland Athletics, World Series champs 3 years after Billy Beane leaves.
Manny Machado, 2019, actual functioning human being.
As the Boston Red Sox have just won the World Series, there's little to make fun of. They dominated during the season, as we discussed, and during October, as we discussed. But this is Greenlight, so congratulations to the Boston Red Sox on being so dominant, it kind of made their World Series run boring.
After a quietly very successful season this year, the Rays could surprise and make the playoffs next season. If only the general public knew that they were a team.
I like how you kind of rolled into that one.
You're welcome.
That was good. After we picked on Alex Bregman last week, I felt the need to clarify that he didn't really perform as poorly as we made it seem. That being said, talk crap, get slapped.
Joshua correctly predicted in last week's show the Red Sox would win the World Series in 5 and deserves all of the praise in the world. He is everything I want to be in a broadcast. Did you touch this?
I don't know what you're talking about. That's a glitch. The Atlanta Braves have enough money to sign Machado, Harper, and Kimbrel. As such, the Braves would like to welcome to the team Joakim Soria.
He's going to take us to the World Series. The Toronto Blue Jays gave Russell Martin, a catcher, 10 innings at shortstop this season. If that's any indication of how their season went, Vlad Guerrero Jr. can't get to the bigs soon enough.
The Baltimore Orioles' goal to not lose 115 games in 2019 looks out of reach as they are already 10 games out of first place and the season hasn't even started.
With their young players getting more playing time and money to spend on big free agents, expect the Yankees to compete hard with the Red Sox for least liked opposing team of 2019.
After a disappointing season in a terrible division, the Cleveland Indians are poised to make a comeback next year with... Hold on. No, I got it. Do you have it? I don't have it. Oh, right. Only 6 good players, because that's how baseball works.
Look, we'd comment on the rest of the AL Central, but their seasons were hard enough as it is. We're not that cruel.
After losing 2 straight World Series, the Dodgers are looking to make it to the World Series 3 straight times and win it all this next season. Good luck with that.
The Giants managed the amazing fate of winning 3 World Series in 5 years with their most recent victory coming in 2014. It really is admirable how long they've clung on to their former glory like the fading beauty of a movie star. Take a page from the Diamondbacks' book, make a clean break, and look to the future.
With little financial room to maneuver, it's looking like the 2019 Brewers will be roughly the same team as the 2018 Brewers. In a division with teams that will spend heavily in the offseason, it doesn't look too good for the Brew Crew. On the plus side, Christian Yelich might hit puberty during the offseason. Fingers crossed.
Now, you might ask when we'll stop the joke that Christian Yelich looks young, and we will stop when he hits puberty.
The Cubs have gone 2 whole seasons without winning a World Series, and the fan base is getting antsy. Guess it's time to clear house and bring back Jim Hendry.
Shohei Ohtani won't be able to pitch for the Angels in 2019, but he will be able to hit, which is more than the Mets can say.
Remember when Nolan Ryan smoked Robin Ventura with a fastball and then punched his lights out? That's what life does to Mariners fans every year.
It's really unfortunate that Manny Machado is a free agent the same offseason the Phillies most motivated to spend. He could actually wind up on that team.
To all the teams we didn't write a joke about, try making an impact in the postseason and we'll think about it. That one might be the harshest thing I've ever written.
I was about to say
that was rough.
Ooh, zip, zip.
So after such a good season, how are you feeling about the Braves heading forward? Because as we discussed,
you brought up Kimbrel, and we brought up Kimbrel in Green Light. Kimbrel was on the Braves.
Yeah,
Kimbrel was a great pitcher.
He established himself on the Braves.
On the Braves. I would love to see him back on the Braves.
He's your boy?
I loved watching him play. I remember that was one of the seasons that I started actually, like when I started more so getting into it, and he was still on that team. He was still on the Braves, and I loved watching him pitch with that cool stance that he does.
Cool stance.
I call it a cool stance.
But the opposing team's fans call it this. You see it everywhere he goes.
I know, everywhere he goes.
And managers, sure, I'll call them managers. Reporters have asked him why he does that, and they said, "Is it your shoulder? You feel the need to do that?" And he just was like, "No."
Just how he was taught, I guess.
I think he said it just looks cool, or something to that extent.
Awesome.
I am 100% not quoting anything. I may be completely mixing things up, so don't take that verbatim at all.
We'll see what happens.
Yes,
I think the Braves are going to be doing some cool stuff lately.
As the season comes to a close and a noticeable emptiness creeps back into the lives of baseball fans, I'll end today's show with one of my personal favorite quotes. From baseball legend Rogers Hornsby, "People ask me what I do in winter when there's no baseball. I'll tell you what I do. I stare out the window and wait for spring." So on behalf of Jeff Matthews and my wonderful production crew, I'm Joshua Adams, and we'll see you in spring.